We're in room 103. If I try to get into a different room, doesn't let me, won't let me get into 105. But if I try to get into 103, wonderful. I love that. I love how fast it is. I love that it just puts your key right there so you can pick it right back up. And using the pressure plate as the way to do it, just, oh man, I'm so proud of this little design. Okay, we'll do it. It'll be fun. So we're going to jump into my sandbox world. Ta-da, here it is, the product of years of insanity. This is my Redstone testing world. Let's learn how to make that door, shall we? And I think that for anyone who wants to learn Redstone or start doing more Redstone stuff, it's better to actually understand what you're doing and think about it from like a problem-solving kind of perspective, rather than just like, oh, let me find a video of this person's tutorial and copy it block for block and not really understand what I'm doing. So here is a little wall and floor, and we want to build the hotel room door right here, right? So we have an iron door like that, and that's basically the door that we want to open when you put your hotel room key in the door, right? And the way that I did it is with a decorated pot, and decorated pots are pretty cool for a few reasons. One being they can only take like a single item. So if I get like cobblestone and mossy cobblestone, we can put cobblestone in there, but we can't put mossy cobblestone in there, right? It like shakes its head at us. It won't let us do it. I love that. So then, you can break the pot, get the stuff back out. If I did the mossy cobblestone first, it goes in just fine, but can't put in cobblestone, right? So that's what's kind of special about pots. And then the other thing is that it's like one of the only things in the game that you can just like right click to interact with an item. So that's super cool. And it makes it great for things like a key card reader. And the other thing that's really fun about these decorated pots is that you get all these different shards that you can use to design them. And obviously you got to go find them, got to do some archaeology. But once you find them, you can get little decorations to put on the front of your pot. The one that I have been using for the key cards specifically is this friend pottery shard, which is like a villager face kind of thing. But it also, in a modern context, I think looks like a key card or something like that. And then really the main interaction here is pretty simple. We want to have a dropper pointing up with a pressure plate on it. And we're going to use an iron pressure plate just because I think it looks nice in this build. You could use any pressure plate other than a stone pressure plate, because stone pressure plates don't respond to item entities. They require mobs or player entities. I guess blackstone's the same as stone, but all the other pressure plates, they'll trigger if you have an item sitting on them. So the simple mechanism behind this thing, if we have a key, and I'll use something that looks like a key for the sake of this tutorial, but if we put a trial key in that dropper and then trigger it, and I'll just use a lever, right? It spits the key out on top of the pressure plate, which opens the door, and so you can get into the room. And so we want to make it so that this pot can only take this specific item, and we want to make it so that when you put the item in, it goes into that dropper and then spits right out onto the pressure plate immediately. We obviously need a hopper underneath this pot, right? So it's going to take anything out of this pot, put it in the dropper, and we can try that. Pop the key in, it goes right down into there. And that's because the hopper just pulls it out immediately and then pushes it into the dropper immediately. But this doesn't work for making sure that we can only put one item in there that is the item that we want, because this hopper is always just going to pull everything out of there. And so what we want to do is actually measure a signal out of this pot. I'll show you what I mean here. If I use a comparator, we can then like see how this works. If I put some lamps here, you can see with nothing in the pot and no hopper underneath it to pull stuff out, we get nothing. We get no signal coming out. But as soon as we put one key in, we get one signal strength coming out of the comparator. And this is great because now there's an item in here, which means I can't put any other random thing in there, right? I can only put another key in. Now, it's not exactly one-to-one, right? Like putting in a second key doesn't immediately make it hop to the next level. But it turns out that if you actually put in like 4 keys, then it'll go to the next level. So what we basically want to do is mostly keep it at level 1 so that there's definitely some items in there so that we can't put anything else in. But as soon as we put in that 4th key, we want to detect that the signal strength has gone up 1 and then use that to pull that key out of here, put it in here, and then pop it out onto the pressure plate. But we don't want to have a comparator right here. It's visible, it's obvious, it doesn't look great. And like, yes, you could try to cover it, but you can still see it. It doesn't look that great. So the nice thing about comparators is that they can generally read signals out through a solid block. This will still be able to read the signal out. And so that lets us make this look a little bit nicer. And I think what I did in the hotel was basically something like, I cover the comparator up here, which I think makes that look pretty nice. So we'll pop a comparator there, have that go into a solid block. The nice thing about pushing a signal into a block is that if you put a block underneath it and put redstone dust down there, the signal that's pushed into this block, that redstone dust underneath it gets powered to the same signal strength. So we have the exact same situation here. And we can see that with nothing in here, we get no signal. As soon as we put one thing in, we get the signal strength of 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe it's 5. 5 things in, we get the signal strength of 2, and it works exactly the same way. So that lets us kind of move the redstone down and hide it a little bit better. But so we want to have a hopper here that's locked. And the way that you lock a hopper, as I'm sure you know, is just power it with redstone. And so any block right here with a torch powering the hopper, which locks the hopper, which means it's not going to pull anything out of the stuff that's above it. And it's also not going to push anything into the thing that's in front of it. So we can test that. We have nothing in this dropper, and I'm putting a ton of keys in here, and they're all just staying in there and not going into this hopper and not going to the dropper. But as soon as we unpower this, you can see there's items actually flowing out of the pot and into the dropper. So that's basically what we want to do. When you put in one more key, we want it to, just for a split second, unpower the hopper so that it pulls the item out and pushes it in here. We can do that pretty simply. It basically comes down to just being a circuit like this. If I put in one key, you can see now we have this powered, but this isn't powered yet. And if I add 2, 3, 4 more keys, it'll still just be powering this one line. But as soon as I add a 5th key here, it'll go here, unpower this hopper, pull that key out. So let's try it. Look at that, it did it. The key actually ends up in the hopper. So ultimately you need like 6 of whatever your key item is, because you need to have 4 in the pot at all times. There's going to be 1 in here, and then you need the 6th one, which the players would actually have and be able to use. And so from here, now that there's an item in there, if I hit this, the key is in the dropper. And so the last step here is just, we want to power this dropper after the key has made it in so that it pops it out onto the pressure plate. And so what we want to do is just a repeater to add just like a slight amount of delay. I'll use a target block here. And the target blocks are nice because they actually redirect the redstone signal into them. And so now when I hit 2 signal strength for having all the items in there, it will actually power this block. The problem is now it won't power this one because you can see the redstone dust is no longer going into that block. And so that's why I actually designed this to use 2 target blocks here so that the redstone goes into that one and this one. And so we have the one right here that locks the hopper. And then we'll just have another one here, a repeater on 2 ticks going into a solid block. And then we need to power this. We put a solid block under there and then have a little bit of redstone dust just like that. So I'll put in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to get it primed items here. And then once I add the final item, it will cause this redstone dust to power here. That'll power this target block, unpowering the torch, allowing the hopper to pull an item out, push an item in here. And then a tick later, because of this repeater, it'll power this block, which then powers adjacent redstone dust, which will power this block, which will trigger the dropper. So let's try it. Beautiful.